I want to start tonight by taking you back to the heat of the presidential election. It was the summer of 2020, and the country was literally falling apart. Most of you were mandated to wear a mask and stay inside. But the rioters, they got away with looting businesses and burning down buildings. Curfews were simply just ignored. Stores in major cities were boarded up, and Democrats seized the moment, claiming all the violence on the streets was caused by Trump supporters, not the rioters that did it. In fact, when one protest broke out in Kenosha, Joe Biden went there and gave a grand speech blaming Trump for all the division in the country.
The idea that this president continues to try to divide us, give succor to the white supremacists, talks about how there's really good people on both sides. It legitimizes the dark side of human nature. And what it did, though, it also exposed what had not been paid enough attention to, the underlying racism that is institutionalized in the United States. We end up in a circumstance like you had here in Kenosha and have here in Kenosha.
Racism. But if Democrats were really going to sell the case that Trump is a dangerous man with loyal extremist followers, they needed a poster board. Enter Kyle Rittenhouse. Who cares if he was a kid? Who cares about the presumption of innocence? It's a heated election, and Trump has to go.
The 17-year-old accused of committing those two murders was a Trump supporter.
It's a tragedy.
Do you condemn that?
It's a tragedy.
Do you condemn it?
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy,
the entire situation is a tragedy.
You see the journalists at CNN, condemn it. It's a tragedy. No, but condemn it. Don't wait for the facts. Ron Johnson and people like you have been dragged through the mud ever since for simply wanting justice to take its course. Now that the election is over, the case has been made its way through the system. And it turns out the Democrats and the media couldn't have been more wrong about Rittenhouse. Take the murder charge, for example. The accusation was that he was part of a militia and went to Kenosha on that August night to kill people. There was no other possibility. He couldn't have acted in self-defense. That wouldn't fit the narrative. But the argument fell apart this week. On Monday, one of the witnesses admitted he pointed the gun at Rittenhouse first. And then today there was this. Rittenhouse struggling to tell the events that happened that night. Watch.
Once I take that step back, I look over my shoulder and Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side. And I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski. And there were three people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle. Wow. He had been steady the entire testimony, clear and concise. In that moment, he broke down describing him taking someone's life. So does that sound like a crazed killer to you? But let's be honest, the prosecution knows he's not guilty. Today they got desperate though, and they tried every dirty trick in the book. They even tried to use his own constitutional rights against him.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that.
So they managed to tick off the judge. These are lawyers. The prosecution knows better, but they don't care. They've got a narrative to push. So while we wait for a verdict tonight with an 18-year-old's freedom on the line, we have to talk about accountability. Regardless of the outcome, there should be consequences for these people who manufactured this hoax. It was clear disinformation. No, it was misinformation. The people who colluded with the media to push this fake news did it all just to win an election. I just hope it was worth it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.